So, 2021 Texas Christian, 5-7. Gary Patterson resigns, steps down, leaves. Sonny Dykes comes in, they go into the portal, and they go on a tear. They go on a run. They are undefeated into the Big 12 championship game. They lose to Kansas State, but they make the college football playoff, and they beat Michigan to get into the national championship game, only to get beat like a drum, 66-7 by Georgia, but they're still national title runner-up, right? The next year, garbage, trash, not any good. Washington, meanwhile, they get to the Pac-12 championship game, and they win it. They double up Oregon, right? They get to the national championship game. They lose to Michigan. Kalen DeBoer goes to Alabama. You know, we have to remake the whole thing. And Washington, not that great this year. Just not that good. Meanwhile, Indiana, who was bad last year, fired the head coach, Tom Allen, the defensive coordinator over at Indiana. They are amazing, right? We've seen these pendulum swings, man. And the last one that we got to talk about is the one that is a dumpster fire. Florida State is god-awful, is terrible. And I don't know that anybody expected Florida friggin' State to be 1-7 heading into the month of November. And you know what? They might not win another game. Like, I don't know if Florida State's going to get to 3 wins this season because they still got Miami left to play. Florida left. Let me make sure I got this right. Because this loss to Miami tonight, so they don't have Miami left to play, 36-14 is one thing. The other is, let's see, Miami also doubled up. Miami got a win against Florida State and Florida this year. Florida State still got left North Carolina. Maybe they win that game. Notre Dame, they'll lose that game. Charleston Southern, okay, that's 2 wins. And Florida. So you got to beat North Carolina or Florida to get 3 wins. I'm not sure they can beat Florida. I don't know about North Carolina. North Carolina is in the baddest spot as Florida State is, except North Carolina has won 4 games, and they only got to win 2 more to get to bowl eligibility. So after going 13-0, Florida State is 1-7. Going into this game, 1-6. They're not 1-7. I keep trying to add another loss to them. My bad, Florida. Oh, no, 1-7. I got it right. So the point there was 1956 Maryland was the last team to go undefeated the previous season and then begin the next season 1-6. It's been that long. I don't feel shy about saying this is the worst Florida State season ever, given whatever's going on around this program. It's not just that DJ Uiagalelei turned out to not be good or that Brock Glenn turned out to not be good. It's more that you spent $12 million on the roster and $2 million on the defensive line, and y'all can't stop nobody, and you can't score. You got half of the Bama players that Nick Saban had, and you still can't go get W's. I don't know when the bottom is going to be seen for Florida State, but if you're a Florida State fan, I feel for you, man, because you don't deserve this. You don't deserve this. I don't take any pride in saying that you're awful, and I'm sure you don't either. If anything, if you're like me and you're thinking about, say, Oklahoma, you're like, well, I'm glad there's somebody being real with me. Yeah, man. I mean, that's what it is right now. But again, back to what I was saying when I started that segment, year to year, it is whatever it's going to be. We've never seen this sort of volatility in the sport. And some of it is due to name, image, and likeness, which I know y'all hate, but I love. I think a lot of it is due to the transfer portal and immediate eligibility. I think even more of it is due to grad transfer and 6-year seniors, 7th-year seniors being able to play quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Say nothing of what you might have at wide receiver or tailback. And I think we don't take into account just how movable, changeable the coaching pieces are now in a different way. Because it used to be, you know, a head coach might leave a job, might take a job, whatever. Now you got head coaches that want a demotion. Like Chip Kelly, for instance, right? Or Jeff Hafley at Boston College. They don't want the CEO job anymore because there really isn't that much fun for them to have, right? Meanwhile, guys like myself, guys like Dan Lanning, guys like Kenny Dillingham, we can't wait to get this job because we busted our behinds to get right where we are to do what we're doing right now. But if you're Chip Kelly or someone else of that magnitude, maybe you're thinking, all right, let me take a seat back. Like Gus Malzahn probably going to be up out of Central Florida after this year. Go back to calling plays as an offensive coordinator, not as a head coach, right? One of the things that I was actually giving some thought to is Mac Brown still wants to be a head coach. Cool. What stops him from hiring Gus Malzahn if Gus Malzahn is fired to come to Chapel Hill and help him turn that thing around with Max Johnson at quarterback? that might be cool, right? Those are the sorts of things that we're able to take a look at and take into account. Couple other questions that I wrote down that I wanted to address here. But while I am here, appreciate y'all hanging out, right? Having some technical difficulties to start this thing out, So it happens sometimes. Is Vanderbilt that good, or is Texas that bad? Hard to say, honestly, because, again, Vanderbilt plays everybody close. But Quinn Ewers throwing two interceptions, 3 TDs, wasn't on the agenda. That's not there. And being in a one-score game late with Vanderbilt, even as a top 25 team, doesn't look good for Texas, right? I realize that there are a lot of people that are going to tell you that Vanderbilt is a good football team. And I think they are a good football team. But don't talk about Vanderbilt perhaps the same way that you might talk about LSU. Perhaps the same way you might talk about Tennessee or even Alabama, for that matter. Vanderbilt might actually be on par with what Missouri is doing. That would be where I put them in the tier, right? Certainly better than Oklahoma, for instance. Certainly better than Mississippi State, Auburn, Kentucky. But I think that Texas should beat a Vanderbilt by double digits, right? I don't care that game is in Nashville, or as they like to say, Nash Vegas, because they be beating the spread up there, man. You don't want to bet against them covering the spread. They're gonna do it. And Diego Pavia is never going to have to work in Nashville ever. What he has been able to provide for that community and that program that has been down for so long. So I think Texas is not as good as we thought they were, but I don't think that Vanderbilt is also as bad as they would seem, even as a top 25 team. I gotta acknowledge Notre Dame is back in this thing in a very real way. If you got a ranking next to your name, beware of Notre Dame. They're going to show up and they're going to play and they're going to run the football, right? That was the thing against Navy today that was interesting. A, they ran the football for 265 yards. Jeremiah Love only needed 12 carries to get to 100 yards, 2 TDs. B, they turned over Navy 6 times. 6 times Navy gave the ball away. So that defense, even without Benjamin Morrison, is still down and dirty. They can still stop people from doing anything they want to do. It's whether or not Riley Leonard and that offense are going to be clicking. And right now, of late, it feels like since that Northern Illinois game, they have found their stride as a program. And they're going to take care of the football. They're going to run the football. They're going to play sound defense. And I think that is a way for which Notre Dame can make the college football playoff. All they got to do is keep up their end. Certainly just that simple when I'm looking at it. And now I got to take a look at what else is going on in college football that we just didn't see coming. So the 12-team playoff was supposed to make way for teams like Penn State. And it has, right? Penn State beats Ohio State, even takes the one loss to Ohio State, but goes the rest of the season undefeated. They probably make the college football playoff. Teams like Ole Miss, though, back against the wall. Teams like USC, out. Teams like Oklahoma, out. We're thinking about all these programs that feel like they're going to get a shot because they're the third or fourth program in the conference, right, that just aren't anymore. Or that Florida State would miss this thing in its first 12 team. Or that we would find Michigan staring up at everybody else from the middle of the pack, not really being there at the end because you're not going to be at 5-3. I don't care who you beat along the way. A 3-loss Big Ten team is not getting in over a 3-loss SEC team because the challenge is just not the same, right? The bottom falls out quicker in the Big Ten than it does in the SEC. But I'm also looking at these Big Ten programs that are on the West Coast now, and they got to be thinking, how are we going to come back from this next year? Because Big Ten programs that have traveled 2 time zones or more are 5-14 this season. Clearly, people have not figured out how to properly travel for these games so that they can go win them. You want to have Washington, Oregon, USC coming to you if you're a Big Ten program, and you certainly don't want to be Rutgers going to USC to play a game that kicked off at least for Eastern Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Coliseum following the World Series. It's not how you draw that up, right? So you're going to have to take advantage of your home games in a way that you haven't before, and that home field advantage becomes something different in the Big Ten as, yes, it stretches from L.A. to New Jersey, to Piscataway, New Jersey. It's going to be difficult. That's difficult to overcome, man. Couple other things that I wanted to address while we still got a little bit of time in here before we get up out of here. And I think we're going to have a real discussion about how much value we're going to put into the Big 12 championship runner-up versus how much value we're going to put into the third or fourth SEC team and the third best Big Ten team. So imagine BYU and Iowa State play in the Big 12 championship game and both are undefeated. Would you rather have a one-loss Penn State that didn't play for a conference championship but also has its only loss to, say, Ohio State, or that one-loss BYU or Iowa State team, right? Iowa State, who also is looking to make history next week. They're trying to get off to 8-0. They've never got off to 8-0. They've never been this good, right? BYU has gotten off to 8-0 for just the second time since 1990 when they had a Heisman at quarterback, Ty Detmer. I'm not sold either that Miami is going to win the ACC championship. If for no other reason than SMU is still good, Clemson is great, and Pitt is the fly in the ointment. Pitt looks like they're going to wreck somebody's season. I don't think it's going to be their own. I think Pitt is legitimately good, given what they've shown offensively and defensively. And I am here to talk about any of that in the comments later on if you got a different take on this, or if you got it in the live chat, I'll watch the replay and see what you got on it, man. Last thing I want to leave y'all with is we're only just getting started. This, I think, is going to be the last lull of a weekend that we have in college football because it's going to be a free-for-all in November. We've got some really outstanding games starting off next week with November 2nd. Ohio State, Penn State at the top of the list. We still got LSU, Bama. We still got Georgia, Tennessee. We've still got a Miami that can slip and fall. We still got a Clemson that can slip and fall. And we got Pitt that's going to have to run the gauntlet, right? I said earlier in the week that I didn't see a loss for them. I was wrong. They got a gauntlet run left. Same thing with SMU, right? They got to figure it out. So keep it locked. We're going to make it happen. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I appreciate y'all hanging out with me here for half an hour as we discussed this really cool, if not wildly impactful, Week 10 college football. All right, that's going to do it